office has officially filed a lawsuit seeking to audit the Massachusetts legislature, and this day has been a long time coming. When I campaigned to become your state auditor, I made a commitment to you, the people of Massachusetts, that I would fight for transparency and accountability across state government via auditing the legislature as one of the things that I committed to doing. And when state lawmakers refused to allow my office to conduct an audit of the legislature, I took that fight once again to you, the people of Massachusetts. 72% of you went to the polls and voted overwhelmingly to approve the legislative audit. But even after that ballot question became law, the legislature would not comply. And although the Attorney General claims she supported the legislative audit, she's repeatedly refused to use the power of her office to enforce this law. Please understand that this is not a case of the AG and I simply having a disagreement or a misunderstanding, as I originally thought to potentially be the case. There is not a misunderstanding. The Attorney General is not just taking a pass on filing this lawsuit, nor does she simply just need more information from my office. Our office has released over 150 pages of communications between our office and the Attorney General's that demonstrate how many times we repeatedly answer the same questions over and over again by the Attorney General's office, while the AG continues to allege that we have not. Even in the most recent email from the AG to Boston Public Radio, it was alleged by our Attorney General that our office has never even named the defendants in this case until just the last few weeks. But friends, if you go back and you look at the historical records that exist in the communications between our office, which we have released, you can see in plain writing that in February of last year, we did indeed and in fact list all the defendants. So the Attorney General's claims even recently that we've never answered those questions, the record reflects something quite different. So please go back and review those letters for yourself and make sure that if you have any questions about anything, you feel free to contact my office about those things. We're happy to clear up anything. The AG has created additional roadblocks to prevent us from being represented by any attorney. So it's not just that she herself is declining to represent us, it's that she's also preventing us from being able to be represented by any other attorney. And at first she claimed she didn't want us to go to court because she viewed litigating this issue as a frivolous expenditure of taxpayer funds. But then when we secured legal counsel willing to provide legal services at no cost to the taxpayers, she pushed back, citing ethical concerns. So what did we do? We jumped over yet another hurdle put in our way and secured guidance from the State Ethics Commission that said that we were able to be represented by legal counsel on this matter at no cost to the taxpayer, so long as they are appointed as a special assistant attorney general. That's why we've continued to ask the Attorney General to allow us to appoint a special assistant attorney general. Yet this guidance provided to our AG, given to us by the State Ethics Commission, is still not good enough. The goal of the AG is to keep this issue out of court at all costs. It's unacceptable, and the people of this Commonwealth deserve to have their voices respected and their lawmakers follow the law. And just so we're clear, we're seeking to obtain the same financial documents like receipts and state contracting information that we've been talking about for the last year, even though you will hear it alleged by other folks, including some in the legislature, that our office is seeking to review personal text messages, communications between various legislators about policies. We've actually only asked for this audit for financial receipts and state contracting information. This is your money, and you deserve to know how it's being spent. And I know I'm not telling anyone here today anything that you already don't know, but Massachusetts is the only state in the nation that allows our governor, legislature, and judiciary to exempt themselves from the state's public records laws. The current audit request simply seeks to make public the financial and state contracting records that are matter of public record for all other state government entities and every city and town of the Commonwealth. It is unacceptable that any one of our lawmakers would defend withholding taxpayer-funded financial receipts or state contracts. The Speaker, Senate President, and Attorney General have taken the position that a legislative audit is somehow unconstitutional, even though the AG deemed it constitutional when she approved it for the ballot. It's pretty concerning that the AG's office is telling people to go ahead and collect signatures for ballot questions, saying that they pass constitutional muster, allowing people to go out, raise money, spend money, collect signatures for questions that she is later going to deem unconstitutional. It's funny how opinions change on the constitutionality of state laws when a 12% budget increase is put on the table alongside of membership to the Beacon Hill Political Insiders Club. It's also interesting that our legislature continues to conduct audit and oversight hearings of executive branch agencies, such as the one being conducted over the Department of Transportation with respect to executive branch contracts right now. So the legislature can apparently audit and oversee, using their Legislative Audit and Oversight Committee, executive branch state contracts under the Constitution, but simultaneously refuse to produce any records associated with their taxpayer-funded state contracts due to their concerns about the same Constitution. Please, for the folks who are here today and the folks who are listening at home or reading this, ask Madam President, Mr. Speaker, and our Attorney General how the Constitution can only work one way, and how they plan to defend their audit and oversight authority of executive branch agencies like the Department of Transportation against their own alleged separation of powers separation of powers doctrine that allegedly exists between branches regarding audit and oversight powers. Now, it's important to discuss all of the far-reaching consequences on our government the actions of the Attorney General and legislative leaders are having on our state government right now. There's the obvious fact that the legislature is violating the law, undermining democracy, and refusing to show us even one taxpayer-funded financial receipt regarding their expenditures. But now other departments across state government are feeling empowered by the AG's strong defense of the legislature against our office. And recently, 2 of our courts just decided that they were going to, for the first time, and only after the passage of Question 1, refuse to be audited by this office, stating that since this current Attorney General, Andrea Campbell, has made it clear that she supports the legislature's position that they don't need to be audited, that they too are now going to refuse to be audited. These same courts, as you know, also get to exempt themselves from the state's public records law. So good luck to anyone seeking to access the court's administrative or business records that you have interest in. You're not granted access to those records, and now the Office of State Auditor isn't able to review those records either. Judge Heidi Brigger has now decided that she will not allow our office to review even the accessibility of her court's website to better assist disabled persons and others to be able to better access court documents. This was something that apparently was incredibly offensive to the courts, that our office would seek to audit website accessibility and make recommendations for improvements. Judge Amy Blake also decided to use the Attorney General's defense of the legislature to block our audit of their court's website. So we have the trial court and the appeals court no longer being audited by the Office of State Auditor and not having to give access to public records. When our office was told they would only comply with an audit if their boss made them comply, our office sought to meet with the Chief Justice. But the Chief Justice, in response, said that there was nothing she could do, and it was their decision, and that the Chief Justice does not have the ability to tell the appeals court and trial court to follow this law and continue to be audited. So we now have 2 judges violating the law for the first time because, hey, why not, right? I mean, If nobody's going to enforce the law and provide a check on the courts to ensure the law is being followed, that they've always followed, why not? Also, up until now, our office has been able to review executive branch agencies and offices alongside quasi-public agencies without permission from public employees who might not want us to review their personnel records. But now, since the AG has defended the legislature against an audit, and that seemed to be working successfully up until now, hopefully. And hey, some of the courts are using the AG's defense of the legislature to get out of their having to be audited. Why not executive branch agencies now? Why not the quasis, right? Because what's good for the goose is good for the gander. The Attorney General is creating her own rules for what the law says. The Governor and Massport Authority agree with the Attorney General that records may now, of course for the first time, may now only be provided to oversight authorities such as the Office of State Auditor if the employees of those executive branch agencies and quasi-public agencies allow us to review them. Only if they allow us to review them. But if they're concerned about what our office might uncover by reviewing their personnel records, they may quash and object to our office's review of their records and feel confident that our Governor and Attorney General are going to have their back in doing so. I want our Attorney General and Governor to answer for why they find it appropriate to allow public employees who may be abusing overtime, engaging in abusive activities in the workplace, failing to take necessary trainings, violating agency policies, or outright breaking the law. Why should they be able to block oversight authorities from accessing their records? They'll tell you it's about privacy. It's not about privacy. It's about protecting friends. Everyone here is well aware, those who have read our reports, that we don't publish the name of agency employees. We don't publish the names of these public employees in our reports. As the Office of State Auditor, we instead cite the agency itself for failures identified in their process, in their procedures. We may cite them for violating the law. We may cite them for violating state regulation. But we don't list out public employee information. We understand those privacy concerns exist, and that's why we adhere to the strictest standards. And we do not release public employee names when it is not subject to public record. So why would the Governor, AG, and Massport get together to ensure our office is blocked from reviewing records we have always reviewed? Why now? Why not ever before? Why was Auditor Bump permitted to audit these state agencies while our current governor was the former Attorney General? Does that mean that all of the audits that we've been conducting throughout history have been violating the law, and that the former Attorney General was allowing people's privacy to be just put out there on blast for the entire general public? Certainly not. There's no defense for what is happening right now. There's no defense for it. So if they win on this issue, it's the foot in the door to block access to records by all agencies. Not just the legislature, but the judiciary, not just the judiciary, but now executive branch agencies are working hard to block the auditor's access to basic things like personnel records. We are talking cybersecurity training. That's a personnel record. Sexual harassment training. That's a personnel record. These types of basic things that our office exists to help agencies to identify so they can make sure that employers are being treated fairly. This Attorney General's position is allowing to essentially go by the wayside, which actually harms protections for public employees. This office serves to help agencies to get it right so their employees are protected from abuse by the powerful and the privileged. And it's really, really upsetting to know that the Attorney General's office is weaponizing privacy concerns against those same employees to allow state agencies and quasi-public agencies to potentially hide misdeeds or systemic issues in management, for example. This is not about privacy, it's about protecting friends. Friends, I'm hoping that some common sense finds its way to Beacon Hill. During the time that we're pursuing these matters in courts, I hope our courts choose to defend the constitutional checks and balances that this state and country rely on. I hope all three branches of government come to see that the Constitution exists to protect the people and not just the powerful and the privileged. This is the people's house, not the politician's house. This morning, our office has filed with a single justice at the Supreme Judicial Court requesting that the single justice grant us the ability to appoint an attorney of our choosing so we can bring this case before the courts. The Supreme Judicial Court has an opportunity to get it right, stand with the people, and increase trust and faith in our state government, including in the courts themselves. And the people of this Commonwealth deserve access to the government they pay for. Thank you so much, and I will open it up to questions. "72% of the general public, the voting population in the state, went out and said that they want increased transparency and accountability via this office conducting an audit of the state legislature." That was not just about an audit. A lot of people who went out to vote said, a lot of folks said they didn't really even know what an audit might look like, but what they did know is that they wanted increased transparency and accountability out of their legislature, out of Beacon Hill, and out of state government as a whole, and they found that as an opportunity, just being one way that they could work to increase transparency and accountability. There are a lot of other ways we're working to do that. There are some issues that will be presented before us in the coming months. I know the legislature often has debate about, internally for the most part, whether or not transparency will exist in their own body. But the people of Massachusetts have made it clear they want increased transparency and accountability. For as often as we hear that Massachusetts is leading the nation in so many different areas, people want us to lead with respect to transparency and accountability. And they know that we're frequently ranked as the least transparent state government in the entire nation, and they're hoping that this will break into essentially the Beacon Hill mold and the Beacon Hill cliques and help them to get better access to what's happening in the State House that they pay for. So this audit is just one way forward, and what's happening is contradictory to what the people of Massachusetts have made clear they want out of their state government. Not only is the legislature refusing to be audited, but now we're seeing the fallout go throughout all three branches of government in the face, essentially, of the decision that the voters just made. It's in direct conflict. Yeah, it's no surprise here. Everybody knows that folks up here have conversations behind the scenes, that a lot of business gets done behind closed doors. Room, I think it's 351. I forget, I haven't been a legislator for some time now, but, in the House of Representatives, a lot of debate is not had on the floor. It's had in a back room. That's where decisions get made. They get made in the Speaker's office. They get made in the Senate President's office. And that's the way that the legislature operates. Well, a lot of folks are friends up here, right? And there's nothing against people being able to be friends. But where concerns are raised is when those friends are having private discussions behind closed doors about breaking the law and how they are going to do so. It is why I refused to meet with Mr. Speaker's business office when they invited me to go in and to help the Speaker to break the law by allowing him to control the scope of an audit through a private auditing firm that they got to decide what was audited by, and they got to decide what was released by their office, right? They invited me in to have those conversations. I wouldn't go in to have those conversations because I viewed it as an invitation to go in and to conspire with them to violate what the law said. The law is clear. The Office of State Auditor is supposed to conduct this audit. Okay, we were clear. We understand that they have their own private entity conducting their own reviews of what they choose to allow them to review. That's fine. A lot of places do that. That's okay. What's not okay is the invitation to join them behind closed doors to discuss how they cannot follow the law and instead do what Mr. Speaker wants. I viewed that as an invitation to conspire with them to break the law, and I didn't accept that invitation. I do think that those conversations are being had, however, by our Attorney General and our Speaker and Senate President behind closed doors, out of the eyes of the public. Why do I believe that? Well, I've invited all of them to discuss this publicly with me. They said I'd meet them on the air. We could have a public conversation about this. I've invited the Attorney General to meet with me in public to discuss this, to air out all the grievances so everybody would know what's going on. She refused. I also said that I would allow Judge Gertner to mediate conversations between our office and the Office of Attorney General at the request of, again, Boston Public Radio, where we have a lot more discussions about this on the air. Even though Judge Gertner, I believe, was on the record having donated to Attorney General Campbell, I still said, okay, I'll meet with Judge Gertner and have this conversation mediated, and that way people can see what's really happening here. But again, Attorney General Campbell refused to allow Judge Gertner to mediate conversations. So the AG doesn't want to have any of these conversations in public. You don't see the AG having press conferences about this, right? It's not something that the Attorney General's office is excited to discuss, won't talk about it with us publicly, and just gets to go around and say that our office is withholding information. I'm calling BS. It's not true. You can all read that it's not true. There's no information that we have withheld from the Office of the Attorney General. And our office is not going to continue to be scapegoated and blamed for the Attorney General's inaction. She has every right to sue. You're not going to tell me that the Attorney General can sue the President of the United States, but that I'm so powerful using my psychology and Spanish degree that I can block her from suing the legislature or me. That's not okay, what she's doing. And she needs to stop gaslighting us. She needs to stop spreading falsehoods about our office and accusing my office staff of not giving her the information that she has requested. We have said, if there is indeed and in fact anything that you still need from us, then you should utilize the power of being the top law enforcement officer of the state, and you should take us to court to settle this. Because that way a judge could mediate those conversations, and a judge could order my office to produce what she allegedly still doesn't have. We've been trying to give every single thing we can to their office and answer every question. Friends, it's been a year now. This is ridiculous. It's completely bonkers what's happening up here. And we find it really disheartening that we have to go to a judge just to get access to the courts. If our office is dealing with this, what does that say for everyday regular people that don't have an elected position like mine and get to stand behind this podium? You know, and we want people to trust the courts and trust state government. People feel very disenfranchised and powerless against some of these folks. It's not okay what's happening. This is not just about an audit anymore. This behavior is permeating state government, and it is causing people to lose trust and faith in their state government, in their leaders, in their courts, in their lawmakers, across the board. So we have a lot of work to do. So we are trying to pursue litigation at no cost to the taxpayer. The Attorney General seems determined to make sure that we do have to pay for this. I'm hoping that we don't have to pay for this. But the Attorney General is, saying that she has ethical concerns about this. She's well within her right to raise ethical concerns, but we have answered those ethical concerns with what the State Ethics Commission told us, which is that if we allowed for payment to an attorney by an outside entity, that would be acceptable only if that person was appointed as a Special Assistant Attorney General. That we would not be able to accept payment, which we have not accepted payment. That we would not, or they would not be allowed to accept payment, which they haven't, by an outside entity unless we went through the process of having them appointed as a SAG. So that's why it's actually taken so long. It took over 60 days, I believe, roughly, right, to get all of the feedback from the State Ethics Commission that we needed to get to make sure that this was allowed to be done, that this was within our rights to do, to try to save taxpayer dollars from having to be spent in court. The AG is very adamant about not allowing this to occur, and I think that that's political in nature. I think that that has to do with she doesn't like who it is that's assisting in this. There's a really easy solution to that. She herself could just enforce the law and do her job, and then we wouldn't have to ask other people to come in and to help us, right? So there is an easy solution to that. Also, I just need to add, Attorney Shannon Liss Reardon has offered to help us with this as well. We've had multiple other attorneys approach our office and offer to help to litigate this matter, but each one of them has faced similar roadblocks where unless the Attorney General gives her stamp of approval, they're not going to be able to assist us in litigation. So this isn't, the first set of attorneys who has tried to be helpful to us. But, if the Attorney General has an issue with who is paying or who the current attorneys are, that we have multiple attorneys who could actually have stepped forward and would probably still help forward if there was an issue there. But, at this point, it's going to the courts. So single justice is likely to make a determination on whether or not we're able to get representation, and that will be that. Our good general counsel, everybody, Michael Youngtat.
Yeah, sure. There is a mechanism within the statute that allows for state agencies to go to court to get the appointment of a SAG, which is the Special Assistant Attorney General. And in this case, I think that's why we're taking the Attorney General to court, because her lack of action, her inaction, her sort of stalling this process, she's made herself unavailable. So I think a court needs to step in at this point so that justice can proceed.
But it looks like this lawsuit goes further than just the SAG. You're asking the court to enforce the audit law. So I guess on that part, how are you able to just circumvent the AG against everything that's said?
Yeah, I think it's all connected. So I think the first issue we're seeking to address is the SAG, and then I'll also ask the court to enforce the statute.
And then can you just answer Kelly's question? I don't think you got that. How much is this going to cost taxpayers?
Right now, it's not costing taxpayers any additional funds because we're not paying any counsel to litigate this matter, and we're seeking to just file as ourselves, just with our in-house employees that currently exist. Just file this right now, hope that the justices will allow us to appoint a Special Assistant Attorney General of our choosing. And right now, we're hoping that could be someone who is not going to charge the office. So hopefully it won't cost the taxpayers any additional dollars is the hope. Thanks. So our office was told by lots of folks who were attorneys, former judges, and we have been taking advice from sort of any and all folks who have been willing, that we needed to basically go through the Attorney General's office until it became crystal clear that this was not a disagreement and that the Attorney General is abdicating her responsibilities. So obviously releasing all the records back and forth makes that clear. And also the fact that we have brought the Attorney General multiple options for different attorneys, saying that we can work with this attorney or that attorney. It hasn't just been one attorney that we've been trying to get this entire time. We've said we can choose different attorneys. No attorney seems to be good enough. When we've answered questions, the Attorney General has come back and reworded the same question essentially, but asked us the same thing, or added in new and improved ways to drag this out, essentially, by asking us questions that, don't really pertain to this audit in particular, by asking us, what a future hypothetical audit could look like, even under a different auditor. But as I've said multiple times, I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you what some future auditor is going to look at, or if there's going to be alleged fraud in the legislature with respect to, one court officer, like what happened back when Joe DiNucci was auditor. I'm sure Auditor Joe DiNucci didn't expect to have an allegation of fraud for one particular issue land on his desk, but that was what happened at the time. So we can't predict for any future agency what exactly we're going to look at. We do that when we go in and we audit them. And a lot of times when we're pulling the thread, just like you as journalists, you're pulling the thread, right? We are getting access to new information during the course of the audit that identifies other problems. So, essentially the AG has wanted to limit our access in advance by preemptive striking, so to speak, and trying to get us to commit to limiting any future audit. She's really wanted to get us on the record as saying that. We are not saying that. So really, when that conversation started occurring, that was sort of the beginning of the end, so to speak, where there were just questions that were trick questions that we can't answer because they're not real questions about this particular audit. We can't answer hypotheticals, and that's when we essentially were able to start pursuing litigation at this time. Hopefully they don't. This is my first rodeo, so we'll see what happens. I'm hoping that they don't. Sam? So I have heard about the potential for this filing, and I heard a candidate for another office also filed her own lawsuit. Seems a lot of people are considering this as being something that's relevant to people who happen to be candidates right now. It's unfortunate that our elected people holding office are not pursuing similar action in enforcing the law, and we're not a party to any of those other lawsuits. I do know that they're happening, but we're not a party to any of them.
Madam Auditor, I'm hearing you say you want a judge to settle this. I also heard you saying, 20-ish minutes ago that the judges are breaking the law on this.
Are you saying I talk a lot? Is that what this is about?
I'm just looking for you to reconcile those two things.
Okay, so what was the question again?
I'm hearing you say you
Yep.
want judges to settle this. You also said that the judges are breaking the law.
Yeah, great question. My confidence in the courts is at an all-time low. It is really hard right now to trust that we are going to get a fair hearing, but it's all we have. Where else are we going to go? I already went to the people. You all, not all of you, but 72% of you voted for this. The court is the place that has the constitutional and legal authority to adjudicate these matters, right? And right now, we have an attorney general who has essentially sat herself in the position of judges, and a legislature who's also, they've been seating themselves in the position of judges. It's why I called the Senate hearing on this the kangaroo court that it was, because you had a bunch of senators getting together at the direction of Madam President to refuse to be audited and to essentially decide what they think the law says, but they don't decide what the law says when there are matters of disagreement. The courts do. That's a power of the court. So it's interesting to hear all of these arguments about alleged separation of powers just constantly being violated by the very people who are exercising the powers of the different branches. Legislature is not the courts. They don't sit on the bench. Okay? They sit in the chambers and they get to vote on laws. They don't get to adjudicate them. The Attorney General gets to defend state law. She doesn't get to decide what the law says. She can choose a side. She can defend that side in court. That's well under the purview of the Office of the Attorney General. But she doesn't get to decide what the law says on behalf of a judge. So to have two judges come out and not call out the Attorney General for her decision to adjudicate a matter outside of the court on her own, and instead affirm her position and say, well, essentially, the Attorney General's position, that opinion, it helps us. We can benefit from that. It's disappointing. It's disheartening, and it's concerning. And I really wish it hadn't happened. We've been working over the course of the last year to try to resolve this issue, but during the State of the State, it became clear that there was no path forward here, that there was no meeting that was going to be had about this to resolve this in future audits, and it just is what it is. They're just going to be able to break the law, not be audited anymore for the first time. They were audited many times under my predecessor, who did some pretty good audits of the courts during her time in office. We have audited the courts. We audited the SJC. So, and all these audits can be found on our website. But it's very disheartening, and I'm not sure what the outcome will be. We're just trying to take, one step at a time. We're filing. I do believe that there are good judges who are not only well-intentioned, but who do consider this law as being important to the people of Massachusetts and who are able to do their work impartially. But yes, it's hard to trust that we're going to get a fair hearing on this, considering all of the recent events that have occurred.
The audit can become a pretty big talking point for Republicans statewide office in Central. I'm just curious on what you make of that.
I've been asked by fellow Democrats to stop talking about this because they allege that this is hurting other Democrats, and I have reminded them that it is not the pursuit of justice on behalf of the people of Massachusetts that's hurting Democrats in leadership right now, but rather the law-breaking behavior of those people who hold power right now that is impacting those people who happen to have a D next to their name, but are acting like dictators and not Democrats, right? Because we know, Kelly, that the people of Massachusetts, Democrat and Republican, agree that they want more transparency and accountability out of their state government. That is why you have Republican candidates and lawmakers standing alongside of the Democrat elected, statewide elected constitutional officer, because they agree with us on this issue, because it's a nonpartisan issue. And we know that Democrats, a lot of rank and file Democrats, and certainly the people in our state party, from what I see when I go to convention, and I hear people cheering and getting up on their feet when I talk about this legislative audit and making sure that our leaders are following the law, they support this. So really, it's not the pursuit of justice or following the law that's hurting the Democratic Party. It is the fact that a handful of our elected leaders who happen to have D next to their name, that they think it's okay for them to break the law, because as long as they stay a Democrat, they can get away with it and just say that, oh, people should just believe and trust that they're doing the right thing. They're breaking the law, and it's very clear for everyone to see. So really, they should stop breaking the law, because that is hurting the party right now. That is hurting us. It's not trying to get the law followed that's hurting us. It's their law breaking that is hurting us.
Do you still consider yourself a Democrat after all this happened?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't agree with my party establishment's viewpoints on some things, namely this, obviously. But yes, I've been a Democrat for years and years and served my time in the legislature. And certainly I have a very long voting record that demonstrates my positions on various issues. I am disappointed right now in some of our party leaders' behavior with respect to these issues in particular, because I think that it really allows for people to lose trust in their leaders. And I think it hurts our shared values as Democrats.
When was the last time you talked about how Speaker was saying about this topic?
Oh, probably when I was in the Senate, in the House. And I don't know that the Senate president actually spoke to me about this ever while I was in the Senate. Besides in passing, seeing folks, haven't had the opportunity to talk to these people in several years now. Yeah. I would welcome it. So let them know if they want to meet me on any of your radio stations or any of your television stations, or have a sit down with any of your editorial boards where you can ask us all questions. I will be there with bells on, and we can have these discussions and answer the questions that I'm sure the general public has for all of us. But I have not been able to get any of these folks to come to terms with the fact that the law is the law and people expect them to follow it, or talk about these things in public. I've only received invitations to, do things like meet with the speaker's folks over in the House of Representatives behind closed doors to hash out really what the speaker wants me to do, and we're not going to do that.
Do you expect to vote for Governor Haley in November?
I'm not talking about campaign activities from this microphone, but stay tuned for